Welcome to Hassle-Free RE, the show where we share tips, tricks, and stories from the short-term rental industry and business alike. Hosted by Dave Menapace and Will Van Wickler. They'll help you navigate the exciting and ever-evolving world of short-term rentals. Whether you're a seasoned host or just starting out, they've got something just for you. In each episode, they'll bring you insider insights, expert advice, and real-life stories from hosts and industry professionals who have been through it all. They'll cover everything from maximizing your rental income and profits to creating unforgettable guest experiences and handling unexpected day-to-day challenges with ease. Are you ready to discover the secrets to running a successful short-term rental business without the hassle? Then let's get started. This is Hassle-Free RE.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hassle-Free RE. I am your host, Dave Menapace, and today I have a very special guest, one of my best friends, someone who has had a fundamental impact on my life many times over, not just like an impact like a crater, but like throughout my life, especially since we met each other a few years ago. Super excited to have him on. However, this is not the first time that I've had this individual on. He was on our show, episode 27, March 5th of 2023. His name is Emanuele Pani. He goes by E. He's the co-host of the STR Secrets podcast, owner of a few different businesses. I don't want to say any more at this point. He's really just going to help me co-host this show, and we're going to make it a really fun, interactive discussion. E, what's happening, man? How you been?
My brother, so good to see you. Thank you for the sweet and kind words as always. I appreciate you. And honestly, man, like looking back at your journey since our STR Wealth Miami event.
Yeah.
You've done some things, man. So first of all, head off to you. I'm very proud of you, very proud of Kim and like everything else that you guys are doing. And it's my honor to be here, and I hope to serve the community as always. And if for nothing else, let's give them an interesting conversation. You and I have interesting conversations anytime we talk to each other. So this one was just a recording with Zoom, but I'm sure some nuggets are gonna come out.
Well, you and I are always good at putting on a show. So why don't you introduce the topic for today? Usually it's me. I want you to introduce the topic.
Yeah.
Jump right in.
Yeah. So off air, we were kind of chatting about how can we best serve and support, right? And the question that came up was, well, where is the audience at? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the audience, from what we understood, from what I understood from what you told me, is newer hosts, maybe a couple listings, right? And they're just looking to make that jump. Most of them still have their W-2, which is a very sweet spot to be in. And yet, in a way, in my experience at least, is a spot where you have to be comfortably uncomfortable in where you are, because you're not quite where you want to be.
Right.
You can't quite tell people off just yet because you still need that W-2 money. And you don't make enough money on your hosting business to have a team necessarily, or at least not a full-time team. And so you're kind of like in these two pairs of shoes. Yeah. One of them are the new ones, and they're shiny and they're pretty and they're leather and they're soft and they're beautiful. And the old ones are just your old shoes. Yeah. That they're comfortable-ish. You like that kind of need to upgrade them, but they're good quality, so they still look good. And you're just like, but these new shoes are so much better, right? So like, how do I get both of my feet into this new pair of shoes, right? And the idea was, which is the realization that I've had and that you've had as well, is to just talk about the upgrading the mindset switch that has to happen. Yeah. In order for you to rock those new pair of shoes and walk out of your current life into your future life comfortably and confidently, which is another part of it, right? Because you need both, especially if you want to make this a long-term change. You need to be comfortably and confidently walking into who you want to be. Because if you're not confident comfortable with it, you're gonna second guess yourself, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So yeah, that's kind of what we
Yeah.
thought we would talk about.
You know what that old shoes in my mind represents? And
Mm,
it can also be described as that one step back that you just talked about. Um, the old pair of shoes represents habits.
mm-hmm,
It represents habits and mindset. It represents
mm-hmm,
habits in decision making. It represents habits and attitude. And I don't think there's any such thing as like good habits or bad habits. It's just what are your goals and what are you comparing those habits to? It's a level of
mm-hmm,
perspective. So you and I have been so fortunate, especially in the last, I would say 6, 7, 8 months. You've been in the mindset space longer than I have for sure. You and I have been exposed to new awarenesses that have really helped to launch us forward. You know what I mean? Like in
mm-hmm.
a lot of big ways. Um, what is something maybe let's expose that for both of us a little bit. What are some new awarenesses you've had in your life over the last year
Mm.
that have helped you grow? And maybe we leverage that story or whatever you're going to share as something we can bring onto the audience that they can start to use to their benefit. We can both go into that a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. And immediately, right, a couple of things started shooting up to my mind, right? And for those of the audience that don't know or don't follow STR Secrets, the podcast, or don't see me doing the coaching calls in the boardroom and so on and so forth, I personally went through an interesting period of time of this last 8 months where I have been getting separated. It was a 12-year relationship, 8-year marriage. I loved it, right? Like it was some of the best times of my life. It was no longer serving us. So I believe every human has the right to be happy. And so we sometimes have to take a stand for happiness for ourselves. And in so doing, you take a stand for happiness for somebody else as well. Um, and so in that, the first thing I'm going to bring up in terms of the biggest term, like shift of awareness, has just been really about the importance of your environment and how pivotal your environment is and how impossible certain changes are until your environment changes. And Dave Conway gave me this analogy one time that has been imprinted in my mind. And he said, if you're a sponge and you throw a sponge in a pool full of chlorine, the sponge cannot say, I'm going to absorb the water, but not the chlorine in the water. If you're in a pool full of chlorine and you're a sponge, you're going to absorb the chlorine. If I throw you in a pool full of salt water, you're going to absorb the salt. And there is nothing you can do about it. And for the longest time, I thought I could. I thought I could be a sponge that absorbs the good and leaves the bad when the environment wasn't serving me. And that was a humbling lesson that you can't
Mm.
escape your environment. No matter how much you try, no matter how much personal development you've done, no matter how many plant medicine ceremonies you've done, no matter how aware you are of yourself, your stories, your loops, your reaction, you name it. When you hit against the wall of environment, is the wall of your sandbox.
Could it be, I want to just touch on that. I just had
Mm.
this idea I want to share with people, and I think that is such a good awareness to share, right? Could it be true that you're inspired by and rise to your environment, meaning you put yourself in bigger, more inspiring rooms, and at the same time, you fall to the floor of your environment? That can be your floor. That's your base of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And
100%.
sometimes what inspired us and got us going isn't always still serving us in different ways. And sometimes it is, and that's fantastic. But it's probably a good way to think about as people are starting to assess how they spend their day, what their environment looks like. You could start to think, am I rising to my
Mm-hmm.
environment or am I falling to it?
Mm-hmm. And it's also the change of an environment, meaning an environment that is conducive can change and can no longer become conducive. And the problem is that it doesn't go from this is a great environment for growth to this is a okay environment for growth. It goes, the pendulum swings to it's a great environment for growth. It's an environment you die in. There is not a middle ground in between, especially when it comes to relationships, right? So like for me, especially a core relationship, um, you can't, there's no middle, right? And you've seen it, may that be a friendship, a partnership, a business partnership, a business relationship, it either goes great or it sucks. The problem that it takes us a long time to understand that there is no landing in between. You're just falling to the bottom of it, and it may take you longer. You might hold on to the walls as you're sliding down, but you're sliding down,
Right.
right? And the longer it takes you to understand that, the more bruised your hands are, the more battered your soul is, and you can't escape it. So for me, a very big part of making that jump in entrepreneurship, or if you're in it already, to leveling up, is you really becoming aware. Are you in a pool full of chlorine? Are you in a pool full of salt water? Or are you just in a pool full of just normal water that's just good for your soul? And
Right.
understanding how do you get out of it
Hmm.
sooner rather than later.
What is it that, like, people are going to listen to this and they're going to start to, I'm sure, have a split second or a moment or a few hours even where they're thinking about their environment, how they're spending their time, who they're spending their time with.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people might feel stuck,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's really normal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what's cool for anybody that is listening, there's a tool that you can use if you're feeling that way. And the tool is the act of making a decision, right? And what we talk
Mm-hmm.
about a lot in the mindset space is that decision is really the barrier from bringing an idea from the unphysical world into the physical. And not to get
Mm-hmm.
too heady on people, it's just once a decision is made, you can then move forward with whatever it is you've decided on. But I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people can sometimes get scared of the commitment to a decision. And that alone is a really important awareness to have about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. And it's that conversation of why are you scared?
yeah.
And really allowing yourself, no, but really, right? Like really allowing yourself to go through that exercise. And I had a really, really good friend of mine. His name is Ricardo, and he's amazing at what he does for a living. He lives back in Milano, works in the music industry, uber talented at what he does. Hated his job for a very, very long time. When he came to visit me back in December, him and I had this conversation. I was fresh off Conway, starting to train with Conway, right? So I was just like on fire, right? Like anything that came out of my mouth when it came to like this achieving or this chasing dreams and everything else was just like hitting the spot. And I knew him, like I know him, but I knew him in terms of I was seeing his patterns, his paradigm, and I was recognizing my own. And so all I spoke to was that, right? It's just like, what would that E want to hear in that moment?
Hmm.
Fast forward to now, last week or 2 weeks ago, he actually finally quit his job.
Boom.
Huge, right? Huge. It took him an immense amount of courage to do it. And one of the biggest exercises that like we talked about was like, tell me what happens if you do it and you fail. What's going to happen? Tell me. Are you going to end up homeless? Like, no, I'll find another job. I'm like, perfect. Okay, so that's done, right?
That's good.
Are you going to end up hungry? He's like, no, I have some safety money. I'm like, great. That's done. So what are you scared about? If you go and you start your own company, even if you last 12 months, and you go back to a job in a normal company with the extra experience that you have had, are you going to be a more valuable or a less valuable hire for the company? He's like, a more valuable one. I'm like, okay, so what is the problem, right? And so for people to really have this practice of understanding as they're feeling themselves being stuck, is understanding why you're stuck and where the stuck comes from. If the stuck is from a place of fear is the mind killer, right? It's just like, where is it? Name it. Make your fear stand in front of a mirror and be like, show me. What are you scared of? Show me. You're scared of what? That you're never going to be able to find a job in another W2 company if you quit yours?
There's millions of them.
Really?
Right.
No W2 is going to hire you? You're going to get blacklisted? Like you got drunk on like Spirit airline flight? Like what do you think is going to happen? Right? And dude, we laugh, right? Because you understand, like once you start
Yeah.
going through this exercise, is you understand how silly fear is.
Right.
And yet, it's a monster. Right?
I bet. I have an idea I want to run by you. I'm going to take a guess at one of his fears. And I'm going to say this because I think everyone, including myself, relates to this. Maybe fear of judgment and criticism.
Mm-hmm.
Because the
That's
other
a
things
huge one.
clearly weren't valid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing. I get stuck all the time making decisions based on what I think other people want me to make the decision of.
Mm-hmm.
And, you and I always, it's been drilled into us especially over the last year to only make decisions based on what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's not always running away from a W-2. Sometimes it's excelling within one. Sometimes it's, relationships with friends, family, activities, hobbies, trying something new, whatever it is. But it's amazing how much fear of criticism and judgment stops almost all of us in our tracks in some way, shape, or form. If not, it at least crosses everybody's mind.
Constantly. And that kind of leads perfectly into what I would say the second biggest thing that I've realized over this past 8 months is, what does your inner speech or your inner conversation looks like? Because that is what cultivates everything else. So if your inner speech, inner conversation is like, the moment you feel a thought like that, if you start becoming into the habit of immediately, almost like a horse, right? If you see a horse going the wrong way, all you got to do is just pull it, yank it to where you want it to go.
Right.
The first couple of times, it's going to be harder. Especially if it's an older horse, a more stubborn horse, it's going to be harder, right? And especially if you are weak on top of it, right? If you're light, you don't got the legs to hold it, you don't have the hands to hold it, you're kind of scared to yank it side to side, right? The horse is going to be like, this girl has no idea. I'm going to show you where we're going, right? And that's just how your mind is. But
Right.
some of us have been letting the mind run for, I'm 34. Some of my patterns have been running for 34 years. Some of my patterns are inherited from the lineage of my family. So some of my grooves have been going for generations.
Right.
And I think a lot of people don't understand that the inner speech that we want, so the inner speech that matches the new idea that you have for yourself, that matches your desires, and matches this imagination that you have for the life that you want to have, that you know you can have, it takes time.
Right.
Because then confidence comes and your legs get stronger and your grips get stronger. And then sooner or later, the one promise that I have is this, right? The longer you do it, the less you're going to have to do it.
Right.
Right? Like the longer you run, the easier it is to run. The longer you do everything, the easier it is to do everything. And that's a universal truth that it's universal. And there is
Right.
no escaping it. It's just a matter of applying it to where it makes the most sense for you
Yep.
right now, right? And unfortunately, that is a very, very personal question. And a lot of the times the fear of criticism sneaks in there and you start working on things that you think are going to make an impact more in terms of how they're perceived by other people versus you working on those really real things internally to who you are as a being that are going to make the biggest difference to who you are as a person. And I think a lot of the faults in early on personal development, early on entrepreneurship, is you don't escape that needing to do it for other people. And you actually end up creating a life where you are an entrepreneur, you're doing it for yourself, and you keep doing more and more things for other people and less things for yourself. But now you just switch from a hamster wheel that goes from Monday to Friday with your W-2 that has paid holidays and time off
And retirement and
and
everything.
all of that to your own hamster wheel of entrepreneurship where you bought yourself a job for the rest of your life unless you're willing to do these upgrades that you need to do.
Yeah.
And I think, and then I'll let you speak, sorry, but and
No,
I
you're
think
crushing. Keep running.
and I think that like most people need to just, once you make the decision, you got to continue to make the decision. Because leaving the job is the easiest part of what you're going to do. And most of you
Totally.
know everything that you need to know. And most of you that are in vacation rentals know way more than I did 14 years ago when I started. But you don't believe it. You don't
Mhm.
believe in yourself enough. And so the best way that I have to describe it is the way that I describe it all the time is we all have an iPhone or a smartphone or whatever it is, right? And it's just like you can keep downloading apps on it. But do you ever get to the point that an app doesn't work until you update it,
Oh yeah. Yep.
right? And you're like, I'll do it later. And it gets to the point that the phone is like, listen, man, either update the operating system or this app can no longer work. Most of you, instead of just updating your operating system and believing that the stuff that you do know is enough to get you where you need to go, just find another app and download that instead. And so you have a phone, a mind full of apps that you can't fully use, and you keep downloading and trying to find the answer. And the only answer you need is the fact that like update the operating system. And you can
Yeah.
run way less apps and you have everything you already need. You don't need another thing, you don't need another course, you don't need another video, you don't need another short series. None of it. Just update your belief in yourself that you have enough and you have what you need to do what you need to do now. And do it.
Dude, this was awesome. I'm going to take this real quick in two different directions.
Let's go.
I want to hit, just so I don't forget, I want to hit on self-image in a moment and how I
Yep.
tie that into the OS, the operating system. So
Mm-hmm.
that'll have its place in a minute or two. Circling back real quick on what you were talking about on decisions and kind of the decision to go all in and why are you doing it and how is that going to manifest into your work week and all that sort of stuff. One thing I want to share and you said it beautifully, is don't make decisions, particularly about your, you know, way of creating an income based on what you think somebody else wants. You and I all the time see this. We get students all the time that they say they want to leave their W-2 and create this life for their wife or their kids, or vice versa, for their husband or their kids, or for their kids, or for their spouse. And it's so often that they ever say for themselves. Well, and while that's noble,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the most noble thing being completely non-present and
Mm-hmm.
chasing some level of success and taking 10 steps backwards in your life. And so I have to tell people a lot. We had this on one of our coaching calls recently. A lady was saying, my spouse, he comes home in the worst vibration ever. I'm doing all this mindset stuff, all these things. My co-host business isn't at a place to get him out of his job too. I don't know how to handle it. And I had to coach her and say, and we actually based the entire coaching call around this one topic for the next hour. And I said, it's not your problem. It's not your responsibility. And it's not your job to fix. Only
Mm-hmm.
he can improve his situation first mentally and then in the physical world. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not your job to make him either love his job. It's not your job to build the co-hosting business just so he can get out of a job he hates. Like, that's not on you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a huge aha moment for her. And it was really cool to like work through that with her. And so I think back to what you just said here. I think a lot of people don't start with a what do I want question and how do I want that to look. I certainly didn't. And in fact, I've had to graduate out of my mindset over and over and over again because it's a habit that I fall into, or it's why I tell myself sometimes why I'm doing something and I need to like
Mm-hmm.
pause and really hammer through that. Um, so that's what I thought about when you were talking about that decision making process or commitment to a decision, really that
Mm-hmm.
whole process.
Yeah. And another part of where I thought you were gonna go with that story, because it also happens often within the mastermind, is the fact that it's like, have you spoken to your spouse about your desire to retire them? And is that something they want?
Right.
Because I know somebody off the top of my head where his spouse is like, I don't need you to retire. I love what I do. But can you imagine how that changes? First of all, the weight of the situation for you as a person, right? And so a lot of the times, what I feel like people do out of just goodness, because it's out of goodness, right? Like, you're not trying to do it. It's just what you want for yourself projected on somebody else. I mean, like, well, I'll do it for you because I love you, because that's how I would receive love. First of all, is that how they receive love? Is that something that for them is going to be valuable? And number two is, as you feel yourself going back to the thing, right? The hamster wheel. Now you're in this entrepreneurship hamster wheel and it's new, and you have all this extra weight that you're carrying. I think like this of trying to retire a spouse and then finding out that the spouse does not want to retire, that would be an equivalent of 100-pound backpack that you've been
Right.
carrying up this hamster wheel that you don't have to.
Right.
And I know it's a difficult conversation to have with a spouse a lot of the times, because we don't, especially money and things like that, as even in a family, it's something that is difficult to have a conversation about. But before you do this super heroic thing of being like, I'm gonna retire my wife, have a conversation, or I'm gonna retire my husband, have a conversation with said husband and wife and be like, hey babes, do you want to retire? Or if I'm able to create a business that brings us X amount of money, would that make your job more enjoyable because there is no longer the need to like do certain things or take on certain projects where you're doing them just to bring home extra money? Would that pressure of not having to be X amount of money every month make it more enjoyable for you? Can that switch to you working part-time? Can that switch to you part-time working, part-time gardening? Like, who gives a
Right.
shit what it is, right? But again, if you can, my dad always says, plan the work and work the plan.
Right.
I feel like a lot of couples, unfortunately, are planning separate work and working separate plans.
Yeah.
And the worst part is they don't know because they're both thinking that they're doing it for the other person. And I think there's better ways to do it.
Totally.
Better
I,
ways, simpler ways, lighter ways,
I would
more fun
also
ways.
say, like, take the opportunity to continually check in on that very question. Do you want to retire? Because people's answers may change, circumstances change. And
Yeah.
so, Kim and I had a situation where end of last year, um, 2023, we're like, it would be sweet for us to ride off into the sunset owning a co-hosting business together. And we had a date picked out
Mm-hmm.
and everything. And then her circumstances changed in her business in a company she works at for the better. And things got really good and
Mm-hmm.
really exciting. We met, what's his name? Pitbull, because she stayed. Like, I mean, like, and she's on this super high
Yeah.
vibration and has been for a while, and she didn't have to leave her job. Things are going really great for both of us, you know. And so, we've made some pivots in our co-hosting business to accommodate that, take some things off her plate, put them back
Mm-hmm.
into delegation activities for folks in the business. And it's a little more that I'm taking on, but like that's cool too. So,
Mm-hmm.
people are allowed to change their mind just because they make a committed decision on one thing doesn't mean it's got to be like their circumstances can change and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's
yeah.
okay too. It's such an important thing. I remember talking to Kim when she made that decision. And obviously, like my role in your guys' life is such that as she was explaining that to me, I could see her in her face being like, "Oh, sorry, like it's just like I'm not ready. The job got better." And I'm like, babes, it's all good. Like this thing
Yeah.
that we all have to be entrepreneur, and we all have to quit our lives and stop the jobs and run into the sunset. We don't.
Right.
If you work a W-2 that you love and that inspires you, challenges you, you make a ton of money, have a ton of benefits, and you have a partner like Dave that is great at what he does and is creating this other thing while you're still having the fun, have your cake and eat it.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, eat the cake. Don't
Yeah.
be afraid of eating the cake. Don't be ashamed of eating the cake. Don't be like, you know what I mean? Because I think there's another part of this, like, almost toxic side of entrepreneurship where it's like, wait, you're not retired? You haven't
Right.
retired every member of your family?
It's like a
Like
judgment.
you haven't retired your grandma? My grandma's been retired. Like, bro, what do you want from me? Like, she hasn't worked a day in her life. Like, what do you want? You haven't retired every member of your like immediate circle? Like, no, I haven't. And most of them don't want to. Like, if I tell my dad I'm gonna retire you, my dad is like, great, you're in the way of what I'm doing. Can you please? Some people don't want it. And again, like,
Right.
ask people what they want and lead with what you want for you and go after that first before leading from what you think you want for other people based on what you think they want for themselves without you ever asking them. Because that's annoying for them. And it's a waste of time for you. And it's a waste of energy for you. And it's just like, it doesn't serve anybody,
So
you
well
know?
said. So well said. I want to hit back on the operating system upgrade. And the reason I want to start hitting on this is I know that you're creating and rolling out a program to really help people through this piece of their journey, which
Mm-hmm.
we'll make sure to talk about at the end of this. But when I think about that, somebody says, "Well, how do I upgrade myself or my life or my operating system?"
Mm-hmm.
The number one thing that comes to mind is you have to assume that upgrade in yourself. It's really a decision to be upgraded and then live by that. And,
Mm-hmm.
I know you and I have made some really cool big jumps in our businesses over the years, or more recently, as we've been in this mindset space together.
Mm-hmm.
And no achievement brings you to that upgrade. No achievement outpaces your own self image, right? Like it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't ever exceed it. Your self image is the ceiling of your accomplishments. And that self image is what constantly needs to go through upgrading and refinement. So maybe we like hit on that topic for a
Mm.
little bit too.
Your self-image is the ceiling of your accomplishments. It's a very interesting thing to say because it is true, absolutely. And what is funny is that when your accomplishments somehow, right, you manage to make your accomplishment exceed the ceilings of your identity, you will discount it as if it didn't happen.
Right.
Even though in the facts of life, it happened. Like, and I give this example a lot when it comes to running, right? How many people do you know that run a 5K and they become runners? And you can
None.
see it,
Yeah. Or
yeah.
yeah.
But like you can see it, like they start the 5K and then they do the 10K and then they do half a
Oh,
marathon,
right.
right? And then you can see it in everything about their personality. They all start wearing a Garmin watch. They have Hokas, which are the ugliest shoes made to man, and they rock them with a sense of pride that you wouldn't believe it, right? They start wearing long socks when they go running, right? They start having the little sticker in the back of their car, right? And it just becomes who you are.
Right.
I've run a half an Ironman and a full Ironman, and it was never something that it was interesting to me to make part of my personality, and it's not. There's people that train for a full Ironman for years.
Right.
2017 was the year I was going to do Ironmans. I did a half in May, and I did a full in November. The longest I had run for my full Ironman was what I did for my half Ironman. I hate long distance running. Hate it to a passion. I used to CrossFit to get ready for my Ironman. I was CrossFitting twice a day. My longest bike ride was the one for my half Ironman. But my mind, bro, was so strong. And for 15
Mm.
hours and 52 minutes on the day of my Ironman, I say, my feet are fast, my body is strong, so now I'll be an Ironman. But that wasn't something that I wanted as a part of my identity. So
Right.
it didn't stick. I
Yeah, I
have a
never knew you
tattoo on
did
my
that.
I have a tattoo on my leg, and people are like, "You ran an Ironman?" I'm like, "Bro, don't get excited. I don't have a Garmin watch anymore. I don't own a bike anymore. I can't tell you the last time I went swimming. And if I run now, it's a 2 to 3 mile run, just because we're not the same."
Mhm.
My dentist has done 25 Ironmans, and it's part of his identity. You get to choose what your identity is. And the moment you do something that is outside your identity, you have a choice to take it and be like, this is now a new part of me, or you cannot take it. And so some of you, use this example for yourself, oh, I just work at W2 and never be a business owner. Okay. Now you have a co-hosting business. Now you have 2 listings. You're like, yeah, but I'm still not a business owner. That doesn't mean I have 2 listings. That doesn't mean I can be like Dave and have the hockey stick to get to from 2 to 27. I'll be like Rashmi that from 6th listing went to over 100. All Rashmi did is she changed her identity
Yeah.
to a hotelier and somebody that manages a shit ton of units, and it's unapologetically ridden that horse until that horse dies. Like Rashmi is gonna stay on that horse, and then when that horse dies, Rashmi is just gonna jump into the next one.
Well, and she takes good care of that horse.
100%, right? But like
Meaning,
that's
and what I relate that to is like she honors what she wants in life, right? That horse
unapologetically,
is her life. It's amazing.
unapologetically, and she's always comparing it to over there. She
Yeah.
doesn't rest on her achievements. She doesn't do any of that. And again, to me, there is a balance because you have to be grateful and appreciative for what you created while being unsatisfied. Not because you are ungrateful, but it's because you have such a clear idea as to where you're going that these little pebble stones or stepping stones that you have to the way to your goal, you view them as a stepping stone to the way to your goal. You don't view them as the end goal or the achievement or the accomplishment. You're like, yeah, this is here because this needs to be here for me to get there.
Right.
And this is here because it needs me to get there. I am happy when I get here. And it's not that I'm ungrateful for all the stepping stones that I've had because I know I couldn't have done it without them. But let's not forget where we're trying to go.
Right.
And I think
Right.
that's where she's very, very good at. And I think that's where everybody that accomplishes a lot is good at. It's in using the accomplishments and the achievements as what they are on the journey to something else. And the moment you get to that goal, it's like me finishing an Ironman. It's like I can't believe you finished. I'm like, I can. I didn't see anything else. I wasn't training for this. I was doing my CrossFit, but in my mind, did I visualize finishing that race every single day? I did. When I got my goggles on that morning, was there any other reality other than me finishing the race and crossing the thing and then being like, Emanuele Pani, you are an Ironman? There was no other reality at all. Like if there was no other, like there was no,
You just knew.
I had bubbles in the back of my heels the size of a hot air balloon.
Pancake. Yeah.
Dude, of a hot air, like I'll send them to you, but like of a hot air balloon. The next day I couldn't walk, bro. I ran through the finish line of this thing, and they're going, "You're an Ironman," and I jumped to hit the little sign. And bro, the next day I couldn't walk. But in my mind, that was my vision that I had for myself the entire time. My vision was that I was going to end this race, and as I was going to cross this little thing, I was going to do this little jump and hit the sign. Bro, by the time I walked out of the medical tent, my legs were jello. That night I had a fever. The next day I couldn't walk. All of it. But your body does what your mind tells it. Always. Always.
Yeah.
And you'll do some crazy shit. As long as you don't get in the way. And as long as you're like unapologetically just about it, your body doesn't, they don't know.
Right. What they say, your 5 senses are the last things to realize your accomplishment or to recognize or to feel your accomplishment, right? It has to be, the goal has to be set in the mind, and the gratitude and a sense of achievement has to be there from the day you made that decision. And without it, nothing is going to happen. You're gonna
Like
work
at
really
all,
hard and stay right where you are.
at all, at all. And the thing is that most people, and Dave Conway talks about this all the time, actually use their five senses to be indicators of what they want and where they're going. Versus understanding that like they're gonna be the last thing to realize it, to feel something.
Totally.
And most people use them as the first thing. Oh, this doesn't feel good. Okay. And
Yeah.
no, because and like, does your day to day feel good now?
Right.
Like really, Bibs, like as you're sitting in the car right now and you have all these reasons throughout this entire episode, right? That you're hearing this little voice being like, well, but they don't know about my story. They don't know about my thing. They don't know about this and this. As Mike Shogren said on the last coaching call, listen, Bibs, you're not that unique of a snowflake. You're not. Your problems are not that big. Your problems are not that unique. Your problems are not that difficult. You're not. And if you make yourself be that, it's a competition of one. And we'll clap for you for your little award that you're giving yourself for how hard life is. But you gave it to yourself, you created it for yourself, and there was nobody else competing against you. You won a race of one that you made for yourself. But then don't come and tell me that you're not happy with your life.
Right.
Continuously not happy with your life. Because that's the one thing that you've done, Dave, is just like the moment something needed to change, starts with the man in the mirror and comes with massive action. But the thing that you learn quickly is like when you commit to it, shit changes. And then going back to what we were saying earlier, it's just like, dude, once you realize that it's that easy, it's addicting. How addicting is it? The moment you're like, this doesn't feel good, you sit with it, you understand what it is, you bring awareness to it, you create a plan, and you execute on the plan, and you let the plan go through its gestation period of it happening. And then you have that moment where you sit with it, and it no longer feels the same way. And then it starts to feel better, and it is exponentially better, and then it's a lifetime away to what it used to be. Oh, that gives me goosebumps. That is, to
Yes.
me, it is the greatest single gift that you can give yourself. Is learning how to have awareness of the stuff that no longer serves you, having the willingness and the courage to sit with it, have the self-control to look at it in the face and be like, you need to change. And changing it, and just hold on for me for the first couple of times you do it.
Yeah.
Then you know it's gonna feel amazing. And then you're gonna go chase it. Because the moment you see it and you're able to change some areas of your life and you understand that all life follows the same rules, and that concept really clicks in your mind. It's like, shit, does this mean I can change every aspect of my life to be exactly what I want it? Yeah. No, but
Sure
really,
does.
every aspect of your life to be exactly where you want it? You deaf? Like, yes. Like, yes. Just start doing it here. And it's a muscle, right?
Right.
But the beauty is like some of you are doing it so well in some areas of life, and you don't even have the awareness that you are. So find the areas of life where you're doing it well. Feel yourself in that mind space, and then take that mindset of you in that arena, and now switch to another one, and then switch it to another one. Little by little, bro, like a SWAT team. Go through a house and clear every room. Every room. Some of you are just in the fucking basement, and you're just like, well, I guess there's the stairs going up, but we're not gonna go up there. Why not? Why not? Go. Go clear this house. And then once the house is clear, go make what you want. Because it's your right.
Built another.
Yeah, or blow the thing up.
Yeah.
This thing is infested. Let's blow it up.
Boom.
Just blow it
Well,
up.
well, my man, I know we're coming up on the top of the hour.
Yeah, I don't know how that
What
happened,
I
but
Oh, dude, we could go another episode. We'll have to do a 10x is easier than 2x in our next one, something
oh my
along
God,
those lines.
I
But
love that book. That was great.
we'll build. We definitely have to. I feel like we set a foundation today for
Yeah,
maybe even a
perfect.
series of these discussions.
I'm good with
So,
that.
you're doing some really amazing things, and as we wrap this up here, how can folks get in touch with you? And maybe could you just put out just a little teaser of what you've been creating in the back of the house that is on its way to deployment at some point in the future?
Yeah. So the best thing for me, it's always IG for now, which is Pani. So the letter E, Pani, Pani dot real estate. And the coaching and the program that I'm working on, it's kind of what we talked about today.
Yeah.
Because what I've realized for myself is that I accomplished massive things in life, and my identity with myself hadn't upgraded because I didn't believe that I was any of it or all that or none of it, right? And it just like it came from a place of like being told in life that you have to be humble, and it translated into me not taking ownership of my own greatness and the things that I've done and the things that I accomplished, and finding support and validation in other people. And the thing that is very skewed with that is then when that goes away, then your foundation kind of dips, right? And so I think there's a lot of people out there similar to me that you have it, you got it, there's some kind of sauce that you have going on, and yet you cannot make it happen, right?
Right.
And you've learned all the things and you've seen all the things and you're busy and you've done all this stuff and you're like, it's just not clicking. It's because it's just all for other people. And there has to be this moment now where it's for yourself. And I'll do, if for nothing else, if I can just help you unclip all these things that you have on your boat, you're gonna start floating to the top effervescently because that's who you are as a person. And all this stuff is bugging you down, the shit that you have taken on for no reason other than the fact that you feel like you had to.
Right. That could be your own stuff, other people's stuff, all sorts of things.
Dude, could be that 100-pound backpack of your wife needing to quit her job for you to feel that you've made it when your wife loves her fucking job and doesn't want to quit it.
Yeah. Yep. Been there.
Right? But you need it. You need it. You need it to be real. You need it to happen so you feel something. Because all you gotta feel is within you. And you have to make yourself feel that. It's not through other people's accomplishments or you giving people other things.
Right. Dude, I love it, my man. Thank you.
Always a
Thank you
pleasure.
for an insightful hour. It's always amazing spending time with you, brother. And again, hit up E on Instagram. We'll put his handle right into the show notes. Check him out. Episode 27, released on March 5th, Hassle-Free RE. And I think this will be one of a few episodes we hit on with the mindset topic. So
I'm
be on the
down.
lookout for future
I love
ones.
this.
The decision was just made. So
Perfect. Let's make it happen. I
Aw.
appreciate the time, brother. And again, going back to your environment, guys, Dave is somebody that the moment we met, there's somebody that I'm like, this is a guy that I don't not want to have in my environment. And over time, that feeling and that choice has proven itself to be the right one.
Dude,
So I
my man,
appreciate you,
thank
bro.
you. Awesome.
Anytime.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. You're a few people's brother from another mother, certainly one of mine. And thank you so much. This was really fantastic. Always really great. And See you tomorrow for some accountability, I'm sure, my man.
Sounds good, brother.
All right, bro.
Have a good one.
Great day.
Ciao, guys.
Bye.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Hassle-Free RE. We hope you found today's tips and stories as inspiring and useful as I did. Remember, success in the short-term rental industry is all about learning, adapting, and staying one step ahead. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to leave us a review or comment on your favorite platform. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners like you. Plus, we'd love to hear your thoughts and any topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And follow us at Hassle-Free RE on social media for more tips and updates. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, keep it hassle-free.